Hi, everybody, and welcome to PCA's Women in Paint podcast. I'm your guest host today, Christine Rich with Sherwin-Williams, and we are flipping the script today on this podcast. Typically, Michael Cheney, our host from No Drip Painting, is the one asking questions and having the conversations with her guests. But today, I was asked to come in and ask Michael some questions so we can have a chance just to get to know her better. So thank you for being here, Michael.
Look, I will be honest. I'm a little nervous. I gave you free reign. I said, ask me whatever you want. I'm live streaming this to my Facebook and Instagram, and we're gonna do it up.
Okay, so we're gonna jump right in. This is one of the things that I adore most about you. You feel the terror and you do it anyways, which I love. Mm-hmm. So for those of you who don't know Michael, she's an amazing entrepreneur, but more importantly, amazing human. And I first met Michael, was it this March? It feels like I've known you for years, but I think it was this March. It was at a Sherwin-Williams women's event, and you shared your story, and I was instantly blown away by your energy, by your story, how you got into paint. So I'm hoping you would share a little bit of that here. How you got into this industry and a little bit about your childhood and how you grew up and the impact that it had.
Yeah, right on. I mean, the question I get most often, well, there's two questions. The first is my name really Michael, right? We've talked about that. But the second, yeah, I mean, people ask me all the time, did your parents want a boy? Did you change your name? No, that's really my name and it fits me well. But in terms of painting, I always get asked the question how I got into the painting business. And the short story is that I grew up with a single mom, and we were always putting up wallpaper, taking down wallpaper, painting, and doing all the things. And even though we didn't have much, my mom really put an emphasis on our home and taking care of it. When my dad left, I mean, we had no electricity, no gas, no food in some cases. But it was very important to my mom that she kept a nice house for us. And the result of that was I was really proud of our space. Mm. And I learned how to do some painting along the way. But really what happened and what she instilled in me was how important your space is. So today as an adult, I view space as an essential piece for us, right? If you're in a space that you feel comfortable, you feel safe in, a space you're proud of, I just believe that can change your path in life, right? It can help you view life through a different lens. And I really think that that's the gift that my mom gave me by creating a space. It allowed me to explore some of my creativity. I felt safe. And then years later, it really kind of became the foundation for the painting business. So we get to, through No Drip Painting, we get to go into people's homes and help them create the space that they love. And then, as you know, we've taken it a step forward and we've created our Paint It Forward program. And we also get to take this idea of space and give it to folks that might not otherwise have the budget to paint or have the resources, nonprofits that need help creating a space to do what they do. Now we get to use this craft that I love and adore and do all these amazing things for people. But the truth is it stems from growing up with my mom and her putting an emphasis on our space.
I love that because I think, especially for children, but really anyone, having a place that feels safe, that you feel proud of, really does a lot just for confidence. It does a lot for just like the internal noise. And so I love that you can feel that when you talk about your work. It's more than just slapping paint on a wall. It's about creating that like sanctuary space that you can go to at the end of the day and just feel like an exhale of calm. So I love that. I love the work that you do with military families. So you're a business owner. We talked about your mom being a single mom. We're going to get back to mom stuff in a minute. But before we do that, another thing that I was really impressed by that I hear you talk about a lot, because I've had the privilege of seeing you speak publicly now twice. And if you haven't seen Michael speak, you must. You talk really openly about your anxiety, your social anxiety, and your stage fright, which I think is so amazing because I would look at you and think, there's no way. She's so confident. She's so well-spoken. She's so passionate. So can you talk a little bit about that? Because I think a lot of us tend to let those fears hold us back because we feel like we're not ready. we're not good enough. We have to wait till we overcome the fear to do the thing. But I think what you really live by example is the way you get over the fear is doing the thing you're most afraid of.
Yeah, so let's just first say the fear is real. If you were to ask me what's one of the things I'm most fearful of, it is for sure public speaking. And that stems from just growing up, having a real social anxiety issue, I'll say. To the point of I couldn't really order food if I was going out. I was the person in class, elementary school, middle school, where in class, the teacher would have everybody read, right? You'd read out loud. That was so petrifying for me. Yeah. If I could not get out of the class, I mean, I would actively try to, I got to go to the bathroom, whatever. Then what I would do is I would read ahead. I would try to count and figure out where I was going to read. I would try and memorize this the best I could, make sure there were words that I could pronounce and say. What I discovered growing up and at this point in my life is I think I had some sort of learning disability that went undetected. Really? And I think that it stems from that. And I can see that now, and I've learned to overcome it and adapt. But when I was young, it created a lot of self-doubt, insecurity, and it created this social anxiety that I've had to work through. Even when I got into college and I had to go to speech class, my first college speech class, I went to the professor and I said, I lied. I told him my grandma died. Oh I'm sorry, Granny. I told him my grandma died so that I could get out. I mean, it was like,
he probably was like, I've heard that excuse a million times.
It was fight or flight. And the kind of haha piece of that is I was on a basketball scholarship and it was a no to miss class. So I then had to go to my basketball coach and tell him the truth and tell him I lied. So anyway, the point is that I was just petrified of speaking. And I just did not have the confidence in all the things. As I've grown up, really what this business has taught me, in order to be successful, you have to address your fears. So I have practiced and I have learned how, and I do it every day, figuring out how to put myself in a very uncomfortable situation so that I can overcome this. Because really the way that I view it is, if I don't get on the stage, if I don't do the public speaking, if I don't get better at this, it's me just putting a lid on my potential. Mm-hmm. And I have such big dreams and such ambition with this business. And it's because I believe there's so much good we can do under the name of paint, that is the biggest motivating source here and inspiration for me to say, you know what, I got to get on the stage. I got to get over this, even though it's difficult. So I think for me, what this all, the thread that I see through this is because I care so deeply about what we're doing in the name of paint, mm-hmm. I am able to push through some of the uncomfortableness and get on the stage. And here's what I've learned by doing this. I actually really enjoy it, right? Mm-hmm. I do have a story. I can have an impact and hopefully drive some inspiration to folks. And I can do that through speaking and getting better at it. And that might be a whole nother thing in life that I get to do that has an impact and is going to really be a fulfilling, mission.
Well, if anyone has ever heard Michael speak, it is impactful. So before we move off this topic, one thing I wanted to ask, because I think a lot of people struggle with this, whether they say it or not. So can you just share things that you would have missed out on, opportunities you would have missed out on had you not gotten on stages when you were terrified to do so?
Yeah, well, the first is this podcast. And thanks to you, I even got the opportunity. I really, know that you were part of giving me this opportunity. But, I think the biggest thing that I would have missed is just the personal growth. So, I mean, a piece of this has to do with my own personal growth, right? I've identified what some of these fears are. I do things, like I said, purposely to put myself in an uncomfortable situation. I'll tell you, like what I'm doing for December, I kind of create these different goals for myself. And I've gotten into cold plunges over the last year. And so
where do you do that?
So here's what, I have an ice bath. I have an ice bath on my patio. So here's what I'm doing for December. I wasn't creating a great routine with my ice bath. So I said, you know what, for the month of December, I'm committing to doing one every single day. So I'm going to do 31 of them, and I haven't missed a day. And I get out there at 5 a.m. and it's freezing. It's uncomfortable. Here's what the ice baths have done for me. It's really kind of remarkable when I think about it, but this has pushed me so far out of my comfort zone that when you get into this freezing water, and the water I'm getting into, I mean, there's ice in it, you know, especially this time of the year. It's about 20 degrees. And my goal is to stay in there a minute and a half. That's my goal. I have to have a goal. Sometimes I do a little bit more, but my, end all be all, my commitment that I've made to myself is I'm going to do a minute and a half for 31 days in a row. But what happens when you put yourself in these uncomfortable situations, all the self-doubt comes to the surface, right? Mm-hmm. I get in there. Now I'm learning to control this. Part of the reason I'm doing this is because I want to know who's in control, and it's me, right? So I've already made the decision to do this. So when I do it and that self-doubt comes up, it shows me a lot about myself, but I've told myself, you can't do this. Why are you doing this? Right? I start questioning, why are you trying to do this? Mm-hmm. Even though I've already made the decision to do it. And so this self-doubt surfaces, and it gives me the opportunity to see that in real time, be completely present, and then work through that. And the interesting thing is that exact feeling is the same feeling that I would have when I get on stage, and the same feeling that I was having when I started scuba diving. Which is another hobby I picked up. And I specifically picked up scuba diving because I needed to put myself in this most uncomfortable situation. I've had complete panic attacks 20 meters below, and you have no choice but to get into your mind and fix the situation, right? Yep. So that's really what all of this is about. And again, the reason for it is because I want to be the one in control of my thoughts and not continue to put a lid on the potential that I believe that I have.
Yeah, I tell my kids and myself, it's sitting in the ick, like it's sitting in the discomfort, because the moment any of us feel discomfort, the first thing we want to do is bail or hit an easy button. Right. My 16-year-old's like, I don't want to hear any more about easy buttons and hard buttons. And I explained to her, I said, an easy button is something you hit that feels really good in the moment. You get a temporary high from it, but then you crash below the surface, and it is almost like erodes at your soul a little bit, right? Like little by little, it chips away at you.
That is absolutely right. That is absolutely right. And I also want to say that I'm still learning, right? I'm still trying to figure it out, just like everyone else is. But I have found that there are these things like the ice bath, the scuba diving, getting on the stage, that are pushing me up against that edge. That eventually, right, that edge is going to be further and further away. That ceiling is not going to be where it is now. It's going to be much higher. And that's where I get to really, I think, live and find the joy and give all of the things that I think I can give to those around me.
Yeah, I think it's so powerful. And I know someday you're going to be, it might be your dream come true and your worst nightmare. I can just see you speaking across the country, across the world, talking about this, because I do think that, especially, I'm sure everyone says younger generation, but I do think because there's so much ability to distract, especially kids, just with their screens, even adults.
Oh gosh, yeah.
Those are easy buttons, right? You can numb yourself out scrolling for an hour, but sitting in the, the ice bath, whether it's literal or just, figurative ice bath, is really hard, but that's where the growth and the potential comes
from.
That's
right.
Do you ever
I believe it.
The hard thing though? Do you ever get tired of the ice bath?
Yes. I mean, here's the thing. It's not fun, right? It's lonely. It's cold, right? It's these things that you do because I believe then it makes it easier to, well, I'm supposed to go to the gym today, so I'm going to go, right? I'm supposed to and want to make a better choice. And now I've got 31 days in a row at 5 a.m. making a choice that is really difficult and uncomfortable, Now there's going to be a lot of choices that I get to make that are going to probably be easier because I have 31 times, I have 31 more attempts at practicing this uncomfortableness is kind of the way I look at it.
Yeah, I think moments like that too also build confidence. I think there's this difference between, people who portray a confidence but actually have like an inner confidence. And I think when you do really hard, uncomfortable things, it creates a level of confidence. Like, I've done much harder things than this.
That's
Or
right.
I know that this uncomfortable feeling is rising up in me, but that doesn't mean to stop. It just means to like maybe just connect with myself and just take a moment, but keep going.
That's right. So, yeah, I love that you're bringing that up because we think we have to be confident before we do.
Mhm.
Now, let's also say that this is old stuff, right? We're not reinventing the wheel. Listen to all the people that have been talking about this for years. Listen to the people who have done it. Listen to the successful people. This is what they say. I think the challenge is how we as individuals make that our own, right? So what I've learned and what I believe is that the confidence comes after the doing. So you got to just show up and do it. And that builds the muscle, that builds all of the things it takes, I think, to fully live in your potential.
Yeah, it reminds me a lot. And it's funny because I do public speaking or presentations. I have for 20 years as part of my job. And I started spinning a couple years ago. And I've been toying with the idea of getting back into teaching again. And about a week or two ago, they asked me to do a quick 3 songs. If you've never taken a spin class, you go up to the edge. Like, you feel like your heart's going to explode. I got on that bike and I instantly froze. My heart was racing so bad. I could barely speak and I was like shaking. And I thought, I speak in front of people all the time. Why is this so hard? And I figured the reason was that because it was just me. It wasn't me being Christine for work. It wasn't me being, whatever. It was just so vulnerable. So for me, it's almost like being seen as like my actual truest self. Felt really, really vulnerable. And but anytime I'm on that bike and it's getting really hard and I feel like my heart's going to explode, the thing that I've learned to do is close my eyes and almost like look inward and just keep saying to myself, just trust yourself.
Yes.
Just trust and let go. Like, quit trying to control all the pieces of it and just it's literally one pedal stroke after the other. It's as simple as that. But
that's right.
I can complicate anything. So, but to me, that's my practice of like almost like letting go of control, but knowing that I can control my mind. I always say mindset and effort are 2 things that you can control. Everything else, it's out of my hands.
That's right. Yeah. No, I love that.
So, we talked a little bit about your mom.
Yeah.
And you said nothing's off limits.
Nothing's off limits.
Your mom was a single mom. You had some real challenges, but she made it beautiful for you. You were also a single mom from a very young age. And I'm curious to know how that shaped your experience as the person you are today.
Yeah. Well, being a mother, as you know, there's nothing like it. It's a different type of love. I try to explain to people, you might love your significant other, you might love your pet, you love your family. And those are all different types of love. And being a mother, having kids is yet another type of love. And I certainly wouldn't be who I am today without that experience. Cheney is now 25 years old, and she's really my biggest supporter in life. And I'm lucky to have that. I don't think it would matter what I did in life, what choices I made, she would be there to support me. And so I'm lucky in that we have a really close relationship, and she's just one of my biggest supporters. Of course, she works in the business. She's a project manager. And I always ask her, is there someday you're going to want to take over this business? This can now be a family business. But yeah, I mean, the experience of being a mother, it's like no other. It actually, the truth is it forced me to figure out who I was. Because I got pregnant when I was 21 years old. I was on a basketball scholarship at University of Pikeville. And that ended my basketball career. I mean, I had hopes of maybe going and playing overseas. I mean, I don't know if I was going to be good enough, but sports and being an athlete was my identification in life. I was, a high school athlete, played 3 sports. I identified as an athlete. And when a baby came into the picture, that identification as an athlete was no longer who I was, right? And so there was a lot of, honestly, depression that surfaced. It was a very difficult time to make this transition from I'm an athlete to now I'm a mother. And actually, who else am I? Because getting married to her father was not the route to go. That did not feel right. So I had to really do some deep soul searching and figure out who I was. And that sent me on a whole nother path in life.
Which is hard to do at 21 without a baby.
Yeah.
But add a baby to the mix. And I got married at 21, very young, and very quickly. And I think, I wouldn't change that for the world. And I realized that I had to do a lot of growing up as someone's wife before knowing really like who I was and what I thought as an adult myself. Now I'm lucky because I have the world's like kindest husband, and and we've just again grown up together, but it's a hard time. So and I love watching you and Cheney together because there's such a connection there. It's palpable. You can feel it. So what would you go back and tell that 21-year-old Michael, knowing what you know now? I know that's such an obvious question, but I always love that question because when you're in it, you're just like,
well, it stems from the best advice that I've ever gotten. And you've heard me talk about this, so I'll quickly mention it. But some of the best advice I've ever gotten was from Penny Pennington, who is the CEO of Edward Jones. And just by chance, I got to ask her a question once. And she told me, the question I said was, what would someone like me do being in a male-dominated industry? What advice would you give me to be successful? And what she said was to be you. Be fully and completely you, because when you figure out how to do that, that's when all your gifts and all of the special things that are contained within you, that's when they can come out. And that be you is something that I did not do for years. I concealed who I was. I was afraid of being judged. And I did not do that. So if I was going to go back to my 21-year-old self, I would say, listen, just trust yourself and be you. And, people are going to judge regardless. And I think the sooner you can figure out how to separate yourself from the worry of being judged. Now, in some cases, it might always be there, right? But when you can separate yourself from that and say, you know what, I'm still going to do this. I'm going to be fully me. I'm going to let all of my gifts shine through. And you know what? I'm going to silence those people, and those people over there who are judging on the side, who are not in the ring with me. Those are the people that actually don't really matter. And I'm going to create a support group around me that does matter. So that's the biggest thing for me that I would go back and say is be you. And I think the sooner you can figure that out, the better for your life.
Yeah. And I do think that we talked a little bit about this off camera. It's a process. And I think it really comes from, I don't know if you can relate to this, but I think at times when I have felt big things bubble up, my go-to reaction is just like, get real speedy. So I speed up. I'll take on 17 different, activities. I'll volunteer. I'll, in a year, I'll get a new job, write a book, and become a spin instructor. I'll just go. But what that really is a lot of those things did help me find myself, but it wasn't until I was really forced to like slow down because of, I have Crohn's disease. I was really sick in my late 20s. I ended up spending a pretty intense week in the hospital that was transformative, honestly. But it wasn't until I had nowhere else to run that I was able to really tap into what does be you mean? Like, who is that even? Yeah. So I do think, while I think we can talk about all these experiences that are great and challenge us, I sometimes think the most challenging thing is just sitting in self-discovery. So I'm curious, what are some of like the favorite ways you reconnect with yourself to kind of tap into that?
Yeah.
You
So,
ain't you.
well, that's been a big learning experience for me, right? Because you're right. The tendency is to speed up and not deal with the things, right? So I do have some practices, and one is meditation. And I know, people talk about this all the time, and the successful people do it. So I say, I need to do this, right? The people that I look up to, whether they're entrepreneurs or just good people, they've found something out. So that kind of is an indicator to me, maybe you need to try this. So meditation is big. I love to travel, and I spent a lot of time in Mexico over the last year. And I have a meditation teacher there who was a Buddhist monk for 25 years. And she's really taught me a lot about meditation and the reasons and how to do it. So meditation is a big one for me. And then, another thing that I've been doing more often is just sitting in silence. It's not about meditation, but it's about even just setting a timer for 10 minutes and literally just sitting, not on the phone, not listening to music, not watching. It's not about kind of a meditation practice where you want to maybe observe your thoughts and then let them go. It's about just sitting, being quiet, and what does come up, allow it all to come up. And that's been big for me. And then, just taking care of myself physically. There were years where I wasn't taking care of myself, and it got to the point where I had, and still do in some cases, but chronic back pain for years. And this back pain got so bad, it started in my lower back, ran all the way up my back into my neck. And about 2 years ago, I hired a business coach to help me figure out if I still wanted this business. I contacted a business coach. It was actually Willow, who you have met. And my main reason for contacting her was to help me figure out if I wanted to do this business, because I was now having physical symptoms, pain that I could not deal with. And what I discovered was that I wasn't taking care of myself. And because I wasn't taking care of myself, I was kind of losing the love and the desire for the business. But it really stemmed from the fact that I did not know what self-care was. And, people often think self-care, oh, you're getting a massage, you're getting your nails done. And maybe you are. But there's also a deeper level of self-care that includes giving yourself grace, right? And recognizing if you are, talking negatively about yourself to yourself, right? There's a whole nother layer of self-care. And what Willow was able to do is help me bring that stuff up and see it, and help me deal really with this back pain. And it involved many things, right? It did involve doctors. I've got some torn discs. It involved hiring a personal trainer and working on my core for 3 days a week for the last year and a half, right? It involved some massages. It involved traveling to Mexico and finding a hobby of scuba diving, right? So there's all these things that I do to take care of myself. And I'll tell you another piece of this that I have realized is so important is I kind of call it like to have my resources, and my resources are my people, right? And the way I see that is even my trainer, that's one of my resources, right? I could throw my doctor in that category. I can throw my meditation teacher in there, my scuba instructor, the people, my daughter Cheney, right? The people who love me and don't judge and are right there. I have learned how important that circle is. And to me, that's a form of self-care. And that has helped me revitalize my love for what I'm doing, manage my back pain in a way that's healthy, take care of my mind. And it's like a combination of all these things. And it even includes having these amazing people in my life who are there to encourage me and pick me up when things are not going so well. So that's a long way to answer your question, but it's multiple things, right? It's all these things, and sometimes I do great at it, and sometimes I don't, right? One
That's
reason I said,
right?
yeah, one reason I said, hey, I'm going to do 31 days of ice baths is because I was getting a little off track, and I believe the people who have done ice baths for years, I believe what they say about it. And so I said, you know what? I need to shock my system a little bit. I'm going to recommit, and here's how I'm going to do it.
I love that. So a couple things to unpack there. I love that you talk about resources, and I think it's every adult's personal responsibility to build out a resource kit for themselves. And it takes time, and it takes vulnerability. It takes asking for help.
Yes.
And then committing to that help. The other thing that I think is really interesting is I think a lot of entrepreneurs think they don't have time for that. I don't have time to go work out. I don't have time to give myself a vacation. I don't have time to meditate. But I am willing to bet you would say that once you started doing those things, your business actually improved.
That's right. So I was that person. I don't have time, right? Couldn't take a vacation, couldn't step away from the business. There was a lot of fear around that. But for me, I got hit with the Mack truck with this back pain. And so I really had no choice. The truth is you do have time. And what I do now is it's the first thing that goes on my schedule, right? Those are the first things that go on my schedule, and everything else comes around it. And that's just how you have to do it. And I think if you take the step to do it, and you can do small things, I get it. People have kids, and especially young kids. I mean, I that's tough, right? To be managing all the things. It might look different when your kids are young than now that I have a 25-year-old, right? But you have to start with something. It might be 10 minutes of sitting by yourself having a cup of tea. But you have to schedule it. To me, time blocking, if you look at my calendar, it's time blocking, and that's just how I have to run my life and my business so that I do have the time for myself.
Yeah. So when we were talking, you said nothing's off the table.
Yeah.
So my question is, we both presented at the first PCA Women in Paint conference. It was such a great event.
Yes.
One of the things that I talked about were limiting beliefs and overcoming them. And as part of the presentation, the activity was I wanted everyone to sit down and write down what their limiting belief was. So then they could create an affirmation to overcome that limiting belief, and then visualize their life overcoming that limiting belief. Are you willing to share what your limiting belief is, and how you're challenging that?
Yeah, sure. So let's first just say limiting beliefs are a real thing, right? And I'm trying to manage them, just like everyone else is, and I'm trying to figure out ways to do that. But there are moments in this business when it gets difficult, and I will say that 2023 has presented challenges within the business and on a personal level that I could have never predicted. And with those challenges, self-doubt has come to the surface for me. And one of those limiting beliefs that is reoccurring for me, the question that I ask myself is, am I the right one to be running this business? And that's something that I battle with, and I still battle with it today. And I battle with it because of a couple things. But one, I know my strengths, and I know what I love to do, and I know the things that I'm not the best at. So the question still remains, and I'm willing to say that it's a limiting belief, but I asked the question. Now to overcome it, I think I'm doing all the things that I said, right? I'm doing all of the things to flush out the self-doubt, or at least put it in front of me so I can explore it and deal with it. But that's it. It's the question. And it stems from the fact of this. Here's the real net. If you
I was going to say, where does it come from?
Is that I believe that this business is capable of doing amazing things that no other business in the history of the painting industry has done, right? Whether it's for women, it's for people, it's for my team, it's being a role model, it's, creating a business in an industry that lacks some professionalism and structure. And I believe that under the name of painting, that we can do the most amazing things. And these dreams that I have are so big. And that's where the limiting beliefs stem from, right? Because I know it's possible, I believe it's possible. And then the question is, okay, who's going to get us there? And that's just where it comes from. And I'm working through it. And, we're going to be doing amazing things as I'm working through it, but that's it.
Yeah. I think that if people were honest, I think that's a very common fear or limiting belief that people have that they just don't talk about. So thank you for sharing that and verbalizing that. And I'm curious, as people are watching this, I think it's streaming to your Facebook page. Like if anyone can relate, let us know in the comments below, because I feel that way even just about my job. And I have to remember, I think one of the things that helps me is that is my perfectionism, like squawking in my ear.
Yeah.
But I tell myself, I don't have to be and know all the things. I have to find resources again to look. I'm terrible with details. An expense report might as well be, just the most difficult thing in the world because it's ticky tacky. I'm not good with little details. I surround myself with people who can make up for the parts where maybe I'm not.
Yes.
And that's the way it should be. I don't know where I got this idea that I had to like do everything perfectly to be worthy of a job that I have or a role that I have. Right. So that's been really freeing for me. And
let me just say, it's about comfort, right? When I think of who I would need to become and what I would need to do, maybe even the things I would need to give up to fulfill this bigger vision that I have, that's a scary thing, right? That's like getting in the ice bath over and over again. So I think it has to do, you have to have this, come head to head with yourself and say, what am I willing to do? Mm-hmm. How uncomfortable am I willing to be? What am I willing to give up to get to this newer level? And it's all of those questions that surface that are sometimes difficult to answer. And I think that that's where we end up playing a bit smaller than what we should. So it's all the things. It's the confidence, it's the self-doubt, it's all of that coming head to head. And the question is, how do you overcome it? And I'm trying to figure out these creative ways to do it. And I'm going to keep going down this path.
I love it. Sometimes I wonder too, like all those questions, I also ask myself, why? Why do I want that? Why do I want? Do I want it because it feels good to my ego? Do I want it because it's the work I actually truly want to be doing? Do I want it because it leads to more, financial resources? Like, why do I want to do that? Because if I'm going to have to make sacrifices, I want to get real clear on why. Because
that's right.
Those things, like I've done the achievement thing where I'm like, just the next thing, the next level, the next gold star, and I get it, and I'm happy for like a minute, and I'm like, okay, what's next? And so I've really been trying to work on why. Yes. And what does it feel like when you're there? And what's the contribution you want to make? What is the type of, whether it's, work or personal stuff, like what's the work you want to be doing once you get there? And what does it feeling good look like to you? Because just getting the next gold star, I have learned, does not lead to fulfillment.
No, it doesn't. I mean, I'll tell you, I can relate to that because I thought when the business hit $1 million, I thought, man, that's going to feel so good. We're going to really be making a mark in this industry. And we got there and there wasn't a big surprise. There wasn't a big party. Nobody was jumping out of a cake.
Great.
And now we're way beyond that. And of course I'm proud, right? And my team is proud of what we're doing, but it is true. You get to a level and then you just got to keep getting to the next level. And so it's really not about the end game. It's about everything on the way to your goal.
Yeah.
And you have to accept that, and you have to learn to be proud of the things that you are doing, and just know that when you get to the million, when you get to the 2 million, it might not actually feel any different.
Right. Because I do think at the end of the day, is the work that you're doing, is the impact you wanted to have, are you getting a step closer to it? Because I don't think there's a there, right? You're never there. But
right.
Are you a step closer to what you've envisioned? So it's the end of the year. I love doing, every year I do this personal like year-end review. I found it in Real Simple magazine, probably 10 years ago. And there's these questions that you just answer at the end of every year. But I'm curious with 2023 closing out, and you've had some challenges. I know we've talked about them offline, but a new year, a new start. I don't believe in resolutions, but I'm curious to know, as you look ahead to a new calendar year, what are some of the things that you are most excited about? What are some of the things that are keeping you up at night?
Yeah, so I have this list in my phone. I just pulled it up. It's called my life list. It's also called, I can say this word since we're just on social media. It's called a fuck it list. And I have a whole list.
I need a list like that. Oh my God.
A whole list. And when I do things, I check it off. So like one of the things that's on there was my open water certificate for scuba diving. I had on here that, I wanted to have an ocean view lifestyle. And so I went and I lived in Mexico for 6 weeks this last year, right on the beach. And I got to check that off. On my life list before this podcast ever started, I had on there, host a podcast. I got to check this off this year. So I've got this thing. So, one of my goals for 2024 is I want to do 50 dives. I did 25 this year. I want to double that. So I've got to figure out how I'm going to put myself in a position to do 50 dives. So of course I've got these things for me. The other thing that I'm doing for 2024 is I'm fully committing myself to learning Spanish. My Spanish is okay. I spent a lot of time in Mexico. A good portion of my team speaks Spanish. And so I am going to do private Spanish lessons once or twice a week for the entire year. And I'm going to fully commit myself to that. I'm also going to do that for my team. Anybody on my team that wants to learn Spanish, we already teach English lessons, but now we're offering, if you want to learn Spanish, we're going to have someone come into the office once or twice a week, and we're going to have a real Spanish class. So those, of course, are big things. And yeah, absolutely. I want to play more golf. Golf is so much fun to me. And so I have a silly goal. I want to play at least 25 rounds of golf this year. Now, some of that is kind of fun on the personal level. And then, of course, I've got my business goals. And, we're going to do just remarkable things this year. But so for me, I don't do resolutions either. I like to have my life list, and I have that life list. And then when I complete it, I check it off. And I've got things on this life list that I know are going to happen. I don't know how it's going to happen, but I've started at least keeping this list. And every time I get to check something off, it feels pretty amazing.
I love that. And you've just inspired me. I used to very much be, there is science behind when you write something down. I think it's like 40% more likely to happen.
Exactly.
Everything that's actually written down has happened. And just over the last couple of years with life things happening, I've kind of gotten away from it. So 2021 was probably one of the hardest years I've ever had. And in 2022, my resolution, even though I'm against them, was and I laughed, and I'd be like, my resolution is to be dead average, to not take on one more thing, to not try to get certified in something, to not set goals, because I think I really just needed to reset. So I think, but again, getting that life list like that does require some quiet time to yourself to say, what's important to me? What do I want to invest my time in? Not because I feel like I should, but because I know doing 50 dives will bring me joy. It will bring me growth.
Yeah.
Too.
Christine, on my life list, I'm kind of embarrassed to say this, but one of the things on there was to start skateboarding. Okay. So when I was young, I skateboarded. Guess what? I skateboard now. I have a longboard. And I so we can go skateboard together. But it's at this point in my life, I'm like, you know what? I want to do all the things. I don't care what anyone thinks. I want to do all the things. And so that's what my list is. It's like fun. It's inspiring. It's things that are going to push me too, right? There's a lot of value in it, but yeah, let's create you that life list. And then go skateboarding.
Okay. Well, I am assuming we're probably at time. As per usual, I could talk with you for hours. But Michal, thank you for being such a bright light in this industry, for living your values out loud, for inspiring the rest of us to just keep showing up even when we are uncomfortable and afraid and feel like we can't breathe. You're just a really great living testament to it is worth it. Just do it.
And right back at you. And you know what? I throw you in the category of my resources, because I do, you know, and so right back at you. But, you know, I guess I'll sign us off here, since this is what I do. But so Christine, thank you for joining me. We've completed another Women in Paint podcast. And if you're listening and you're not following us on our Facebook page, please do so, Women in Paint. And then we've got the PCA Expo coming up at the end of February, and I'll be there. Christine, I think you're going to be there as well.
I'm presenting.
At the Expo?
Yes, I'm presenting on how to sell upgrades to homeowners.
Oh, sweet. Okay, I'm actually going to be on a panel with Nick Slavic and a few others, so I'm looking forward to that too. So if you're going to be in Orlando, we will see you there. Otherwise, you know, everybody keep doing your thing, get out of your comfort zone, and let's do amazing things in this industry.
Thanks, Michal.